ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He doesn't have hudur al-qalb in his heart. He just comes salat and he recites salat very quickly. For somebody who's at a certain level, if he's a mujtahid, there's a higher expectation from that person that they recite salat with silence, that they recite salat with the hudur al-qalb, with the presence of the heart. And so our scholars, they say that this type of dhanb, our prophets and messengers, that they could have engaged in. And this is another word of this, another word used for this is what we call tarke awla. Tarke awla, meaning abandoning that which is the best. So for example, the prophets and the messengers, they must recite Salatul Layl. They must get up in the middle of the night and they must worship. But for us, believers who are, barely practicing, who our iman is weak, if we, once in a while we recite, Salatul Layl, it's something which is forgiven. But somebody with a higher rank, somebody at a higher level of iman, it's expected that every day that they get up and they recite Salatul Layl. Or for example, us in Ramadan, before we enter this month of Ramadan, we may not have been as practicing as much. But now that we're in the month of Ramadan, there's a certain expectation from us that we increase our ibadat, that we increase our worship, that we increase our recitation of the Quran. There's a certain expectation. So the difference between the first and the second, dhanb mutlaq, can I please ask the sisters to recite the salawats? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So the difference between the first and the second, dhanb mutlaq and dhanb nisbi, is that in dhanb mutlaq, there is mujazat, there is a punishment inside of it. Whereas in dhanb nisbi, there's no punishment, but there's an expectation there. The third type of dhanb is what is called dhanb irshadi. And dhanb irshadi is whether you do it or not, there's no punishment, nor is there any type of expectation from that person to do it. So for example, if the doctor tells you, you should eat healthy, you should avoid sugar. If you go and you eat sugar, if you eat unhealthy food, there's no sin which is being recorded for you, and there's no expectation. It's just an advice that make your lifestyle a little bit better. It's completely your choice. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So in this third type of category, which is called dhanb irshadi, is just a counsel, an advice which comes from our sharia that we should do this, and whether we do it or not, it's completely up to us. For example, the ahkam which pertain to washing our clothes. If our clothes become najis, it's up to us whether we make it najis or whether we don't use it, or whether we use it but we don't use it in salat. So those are called dhanb irshadi. So the first category, the dhanb mutlaq, the prophets and the messengers, they can never engage in that. And that is the dhanb mutlaq, which is a punishment and there's a penalty behind it. This discussion of ismat, it also pertains to us, because as we gain our level of taqwa, our level of ismat also goes up. Right? Taqwa, there's levels to it. The verse in the Quran says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, aminu, that all you who believe, that there are darajat, that there are gradations, there are degrees that we should be trying to achieve in our lives. And as we increase our level of iman, as we increase our level of taqwa, what happens? Our level of ismat also goes up. So when we look at this word ismat, unfortunately there's a lot of unnecessary baggage which comes from Christianity. In Christianity, the word infallible means the person doesn't have the capacity to commit a sin. Whereas in our tradition, that's not the case. In our belief is that a person has the capacity to commit a sin, but they choose not to because of their level of iman and because of their level of taqwa. There's a hadith from Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib where he says, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali, where he says, Lawla tuqa, had there not been taqwa, if Imam is saying that if I didn't have a level of taqwa, lakuntu adhal Arab, that I would have been the craftiest of Arabs, I would have been the most deceptive of Arabs. But because of his level of iman, because of his level of marifat, he didn't engage in those type of things. He could have gone and taken whatever was in this world. But because of his level of iman, that is what prevented him. He had the capacity to do it, but he chose not to do it because of his iman and his taqwa. There's a story of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib where he's walking in the bazaar, And when he's walking in the bazaar, he passes a butcher shop. And the butcher who was there had just slaughtered an animal, and he was cleaning the animal, and he took a piece of the flesh of the animal and he put it up to hang. And so Imam, at this moment, he passed. And when he passed this, he looked at that, and he just, for a moment, he just looked at it, and then he turned the other way. So the butcher who was there saw this and saw that it was Imam Ali. So he tells the Imam, why don't you take this with you? You can have it. So the Imam says, I don't have any money in my pocket. I cannot purchase it from you right now. So the person says, it's okay, you can pay me later. It's not a big deal. So the Imam says to him that, why should I, because of my desires, go and buy this thing and take a loan out of it? I should, in order for me to raise my level of iman and taqwa, I should withhold my desires. I shouldn't act on my every whim. And so what this story is telling us is that the capacity to do it is there. The desire is there. But that level of taqwa prevents a person from doing certain things. And this is how our taqwa increases. Our taqwa increases when we have the dunya and when we have the akhirah, when they clash with one another. Right? When it's salat time and you choose, instead of praying salat, to continue watching TV. If it's lecture time, you choose to talk instead of listening to the lecture. Right? This is where your level of taqwa goes up. When you have a choice between two decisions, one which is good, one which is bad, one which is about your akhirat and one which pertains to the dunya, where you give priority to your akhirat more than your dunya. When these two clash and you choose that which is the dunya, then your level of taqwa and your level of iman goes up. It's not because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has wired them, has commanded them to do it, and they don't have the capacity. No, everybody has the capacity to do it. We have to have the will to make that change. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will never put a person in a position where they're forced to do